guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm going to do a reading wrap up of every book that I read in August and September. I know that summer is like way behind us now and no one cares about summer reads, but I tried filming my August wrap up at the end of August and had some technical difficulties, so it never got up. But I am not over the books I read because I read some really good books that month, so I need to talk about those. And I also do have some great fall recs that I've read in the last couple months, so we're just gonna do a giant wrap up with August and September. There's a lot of books to cover, so let's get into it. First book I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the third book in the Part of Your World series. This follows Emma and Justin. They meet on a Reddit thread where they basically both have the same curse, where everyone they date, the next person that person dates is like their soulmate. That probably doesn't make any sense, but basically they decide to date each other because then the next person they will meet will be their soulmate. So that's kind of how this book starts. I will say this is like a pretty, this is a lot heavier for your typical romance in my opinion. Both of our main characters have very real trauma and very complex relationships with their families and their parents, and specifically their mothers, which I did find that really interesting. The book kind of delves into a more psychological approach of attachment styles and everything, and how you're raised and your parents, how they impact your relationships in the future. So I found that really interesting and honestly almost refreshing. I haven't read a lot of romance books with that kind of conflict in it, but I did like that aspect. However, I almost thought that it overpowered, or there was just too much of an emphasis on that aspect, that the actual romantic relationship in this book just felt very underdeveloped, and I didn't really root for this couple, which maybe is harsh to say. They were just, something about it was very insta-lovey, and I just couldn't really buy into it. It just didn't really make sense to me. I think because we were so focused on all the other relationships in our characters' lives, that the actual romantic relationship, there was romance, but it just felt very almost I don't feel how they have this much love for each other when we're not really watching that develop as fully as I thought it would, I guess, if that makes sense. I really liked all the themes that we had in this book, but I think they really overshadowed our romance, and the romance just felt very forced to me. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I still liked it, don't get me wrong, it was still enjoyable, but by the end I was very much I don't even know if you guys should be together. I don't know, and that sounds pretty bad. Maybe I shouldn't rate it 4 stars, but I still enjoyed it at the time. I feel when I'm remembering on it, I was kind of just there's a lot of self-sabotage in this book, but it's also realistic. It's not this picture perfect relationship or these perfect people and lives, so I did enjoy it. But this is probably my least favorite of the series, which is probably a huge hot take because a lot of people love this one so much, and I understand why, but for me, like I said, the biggest thing was that the romance, I think, was underdeveloped, and this is a romance book. So that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And I read It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. This is my first book by this author, and I ended up giving it a 3 stars. Wasn't bad, but I really wasn't that amazed by it either. So this follows two kind of Hollywood execs. They work in the film industry, and they are working on a movie together, but they're kind of rivals. They don't get along. Basically, for this movie they have to go back to our MMC's hometown, which is in Long Beach. No, it's in Long Island. This was a cute summer read. I just didn't really connect with the characters, and I didn't really feel their chemistry. I don't know if it just the romance wasn't set up well, but I just really, again, but this one I really didn't understand why they liked each other besides like the forced proximity. But in my head, it was like, you're really want to like each other because of that. I also, it was hard for me to connect to like the Hollywood aspect of this. I didn't really care about our plot, so I don't really remember all that much. I was very busy while I was reading this, so I was probably a little distracted. So I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it, but probably wouldn't recommend necessarily. I do want to read more of this author's books because I've heard that her other ones are maybe better. But I mean, there are some deeper moments and deeper topics covered in this book, but they're a little more like just scratching the surface in my opinion. And I mean, it's a short romance book, so it's not gonna go so in depth, but I give it 3 stars. Then we took a break from the romance and I read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I really like this thriller. I felt like it was really unique. It's about this woman who becomes a nanny for this young boy, and he has an imaginary friend, and he draws this imaginary friend in like a bunch of drawings, and they get progressively creepier. And you kind of discover like weird things that have gone on like on this property. I really liked the illustration aspect of this story. The story was creepy. I was like very curious to find out like what was going on. My only critique really is that some plot points I feel like never really had any relevance in the end. Like they were just kind of randomly thrown in there, and I kind of like it when everything has some sort of reason. So that was my only critique. I gave it 4 stars, and I think this would be a great read for spooky season. Next, I got into my Carly Fortune moment, and I read This Summer Will Be Different. I absolutely love this one. I don't know what it was, but it worked so well for me. We're following Lucy, who is vacationing at a beach house on Prince Edward Island, and she's supposed to meet her best friend there, because that's where her best friend's family like owns like a vacation home, I think. But the first night she's there, her best friend is like, her flight gets delayed, so she's not gonna be there till the next day. She goes to a bar, meets the guy, goes home with him. Next morning, realizes that that guy was her best friend's brother. And there's a very strict, and her best friend has clearly stated that she doesn't want her to fall in love with her best friend has made it clear to Lucy that she's not allowed to fall in love with her brother. Hopefully that makes sense. But I love this. This was so atmospheric. There's a lot about like oysters, and that's like a major theme in this. So if that's like the vibe, loved the setting of it. It was perfect for summer. I also really felt the chemistry between these two. Like I was like kicking my feet. Like it was so good. And they start off with like a very physical relationship, but I felt like the book has surprisingly won. I usually don't like that. So surprisingly, it worked for me regardless, but also it wasn't like super spicy. Obviously there is like some spice in this, and I would say it's like, it's very much adult, but it was like just so like, it felt very tasteful to me, and I just really liked it. Even though there's like such a physical relationship between our main characters, it still felt like a slow burn, and there was still like so much tension because it's kind of like a forbidden romance situation. I ate this up and I gave it 5 stars, and I absolutely love this. Next book I read, I continued on with the Carly Fortune, and I read One Golden Summer. This was her release from this year, and again, I absolutely love this. This is basically a sequel to Every Summer After. We're following Charlie, which is Sam's brother from Every Summer After. But our main character, Alice, she is a photographer. She's coming back to the lake for the summer with her grandmother, and she had taken a photo of like Charlie and Sam back when they were like teenagers, basically, and that was kind of like the jumpstart of her photography career. So then she basically runs into Charlie, and and it's a romance, so we all kind of know where it ends. But I absolutely love this one again. Beautiful atmosphere. I will say, like, Carly Fortune's so good with creating like such a fantastic setting for summer. I understand the Charlie hype, although he was a little bit arrogant. He was a little bit arrogant at times, and like sometimes I was like kind of side-eyeing things that he would say, but I also get it. Like, I get the hype around him. I also feel like I related to the main character a lot, so I kind of like those aspects. Like her, as far as her like personality goes, that's just kind of a personal thing. Also had like a very nostalgic feeling. There's like a summer bucket list in here. It's at a lake. It's kind of reminiscent of like summer, like as a teenager. I don't know. It had a very like nostalgic, classic summer read vibe. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. It just wasn't quite a 5-star, which kind of surprised me, but I still really loved it and would highly recommend this for next summer. I also read The Body by Bill Bryson. This is a nonfiction book, basically about the human body and the history of the human body and medicine. So I really like this. I will say it reads a little bit textbooky, but there is kind of like some humor in it. But I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it to those who are interested in this topic. It covers like every body system, basically: sleep, the mind, nutrition, exercise and movement, like medicine. It covers so many different topics, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like if you enjoyed anatomy and physiology, or if you're in the medical field or have interest in those kind of things, highly recommend it. And I also listened to the audiobook, which also kind of helped make it feel a little less textbooky, but would recommend. Okay, so those are the books I read in August. Let's talk about the books I read in September. The first book I read was Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This follows Ada, and she is an interior designer working on this house where she meets Weston Ryder, which this house is part of his like family's ranch. Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to jog my memory. I ended up giving this a 3 stars. I do like this series. It's a good cowboy like romance series. This one wasn't necessarily my favorite. I don't remember too much about it. I'm pretty sure I might have gotten the ick at some point. I don't know. I didn't love it. I also felt like I also got like kind of bored. It felt a little insta-lovey. There was like, I don't think I really felt the chemistry either again, but I honestly don't remember too much of the plot. It was more for the vibes. These are always like short and sweet. So I will continue on the series. Giving this was 3 stars though. Wasn't obsessed. But I do recommend this series if you're looking for like a cowboy romance series. Sorry, I'm having a lot of interruptions throughout this video, so apologies if I sound a little scattered. Next book I read was The Women by Kristen Hanna. This was phenomenal. I absolutely loved this. This is about a young woman whose brother joins the Vietnam War. Their family is from World War II and World War One, like heroes for being soldiers in the war and stuff. She wants to help her country, so she decides to join the military as a nurse. And basically we're following her life during the war and also after the war. I don't know much about the Vietnam War, so it was very like informative overall, very informational. So much action too. Like I was so engaged throughout this book too. Like I always wanted to like keep reading it. It was obviously very dramatic, so look up trigger warnings, but it was so good. It also was very entertaining. So like the first half is basically her in the war and like the like obviously horrible things that she sees during that, and then her time after the war and the way that she's not so welcomed back into the US and how women are very much like not acknowledged for their help in the war and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different aspects through that, but it was so interesting to read about that. It's also like a lot of drama, like with romantic relationships and other relationships, that was very entertaining, but I felt like kind of almost took away from like just the seriousness of the book. I gave this book a 5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was so interesting and really gave me a new perspective on that time in history and just was super informational. Next book I read was Hickory Dickory Dock by Agatha Christie. I love Agatha Christie, and this is just kind of a shorter novel by her, part of the Hercule Poirot collection. This kind of takes place at like kind of like a student housing situation. It was really good. It's pretty short, so it was very like straight to the point, which I liked. This was just a good cozy mystery. I gave it 4 stars. I don't have much to say about it because it's just like your classic cozy mystery by Agatha Christie, but really enjoyed it and would recommend. Then I read Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This again also fantastic book. I ended up giving it 4 stars though because it was just so slow and I definitely was bored at some points. If you don't know what this is about, we basically have 3 POVs of these different vampires from different periods of time, and I love the historical aspect. We start in like 1500 Spain, and I loved watching that storyline. I thought like just the historical elements were so cool, were so fun, and like the gothic like vampire vibes were like definitely there. This book is a lot of vibes, a little less on the plot. I feel like the plot could have been stronger in my opinion, but it was so atmospheric. I really liked the themes that were in it. It's just very like, I don't know, it's very moody and like very reminiscent of Addie LaRue, which is why I was so interested in reading it. Kind of has that same writing style. I mean, it's the same author obviously, but I just love the writing style that V. Schwab has. But the pacing is very similar. So if you found an Addie LaRue to be very like slow and boring, you're probably definitely going to think the same of this one. But I would recommend it if you like V. Schwab and or like vampires, because this is like a perfect October read and I would highly recommend. I ended up giving it a 4 stars because again, when I wasn't reading it, I didn't always care to pick it up, but when I was reading it, it was like such a vibe. It was so good. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And the last book I read, I actually just finished this not too long, like Larry's Day, was Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I really like the concept of this. We're following Hannah, who's 29. Her life is kind of all over the place at the beginning of the book. And then one night she goes to the bar, runs in with her best friend, and runs into her high school boyfriend. And she basically has a choice to make. She has a choice to go home with her best friend or to continue the night and stay out with her high school boyfriend. And we watch both timelines happen. I really like the pacing of this book. It flips between both timelines pretty quickly, and they're both very action-packed, so I was never really bored. I was always like very entertained and engaged in the book. Like I said, I love the concept of like how like is fate real? Like do you like the choices you make and like the butterfly effects of those, kind of like the butterfly effect of those choices. I give this a 4 stars because the main character was a little annoying. I feel like she was also a little inconsistent. And I don't know if that's like kind of the point of both choices and how it shapes her, but I feel like in the timelines, she was almost like, I don't know, she had a very kind of inconsistent personality in my opinion, and there were some things that were just kind of cringy, and I kind of blame that on the fact that this was just written in like 2015, and so I'm kind of like, oh, maybe that's why. There are some just like aspects that are a little bit cringe, and I don't know. But the main character was a little bit annoying, but I liked the storyline and I liked the message enough that if you're interested in the concept, I would recommend it. But I gave it a 4 stars. So that concludes all the books that I read in August and September. I'd love to know if you read any of these books or what books you've read in the last couple months. Please let me know in the comments, and also give this video a like if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching if you made it to this point, and I hope to see you all soon.